Hi, everyone. It's your favorite MLB newsbreaker, Bob Nightingale, and you're listening to the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. Enjoy the show, and thank God for Jeffrey Springs.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. I am your host, Zang. As of right now, it is just me, but my intrepid co-host, Ace, should be with us shortly, just dealing with some microphone issues right now. But we've got the IT team on it, and he should be joining momentarily. So we are, of course, here, episode 60, to recap week 18. Just 3 weeks to go after this one in the regular season before we hit the playoffs. It is, I have to admit, as much fun as it was to play, it was a little bit of a relief from a note-taking standpoint and looking ahead, a recording standpoint to have a normal length week, and a week with fewer trades. Although I have to say, I would imagine that will not be the case come around to our next episode. Of course, as you all remember, this coming Wednesday, August 5th, at 11:59 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. The trade deadline is coming up. So it has, as of right now, been kind of all quiet on the Western Front, a little surprisingly so. But, last year, obviously, leading up to the deadline, sparks definitely started to fly. And the day of the deadline, we had a couple huge deals, of course. So just as a reminder, as long as there are, some deals to talk about on Wednesday evening, shortly after the deadline passes, I'll probably fire up just a quick, 10, 15-minute kind of deadline recap, talk about the repercussions of that a little bit on sort of the final 2.5 weeks or so of the stretch. So without any further ado, I guess we will get started. As I said, Ace will be joining pretty shortly, so he'll pop in, and then we'll sort of work him back in. But we'll get started with the matchup minute. The Joinville-friendly Capybaras took on the Bronx Bandoleros. Capybaras coming in at 4-13, the Bandoleros at 6-11. So both teams probably from the outside looking in terms of playoffs, but, looking to either, maybe get themselves a better draft position or just kind of continue to end the season on a bit of a stronger note. Things did start well for the Bandoleros. They scored 61-41 on Monday to take an early lead. Walbert Arena had his first strong start of the week, scoring 25 for the Bandoleros. They held their lead through Tuesday, and on Wednesday, Cam Schlittler's 31 points helped them extend that lead, scoring 58 points. Eric Lauer had 32 over on the other side, and the only blemish on the day for the Bandoleros was a bit of a bench blunder with Lawrence Butler, who was left on the bench, did record 12 points. On Thursday, the Bandoleros would score 107 points, 10 from Jack Caglione, 20 from Roki Sasaki, 27 from Yuri Perez, and 30 from Ryan Weathers to really extend their lead to a very comfortable position with just 20 points scored over on the other side. Similar day for Joinville on Friday, as they scored just 21, while the Bandoleros scored 43, 11 of them coming from Max Clark in his first Major League home run. Logan Gilbert's 24-point start on Saturday was a nice feather in the cap of the 91-point day for the friendly Capybaras, as the Bandoleros scored 53, and the Bronx would close out their wire-to-wire win with another strong 32-point start from Walbert Arena, along with 33 from Chase Burns, while Jackson Merrill did have quality 13 points on the other side for the friendly Capybaras. It was a wire-to-wire win for the Bandoleros, as they did take the matchup 458-325, outpacing Joinville by 133 points. Bandoleros did have one of our superlatives for the week. Walbert Urania was the number 3 potent pitcher with 57 points. A really strong week for him. And Joinville was our lowest scorer of the week. As I said, look, both of these teams not really so much jockeying for playoff position as of right now. If we had to be honest about Hideki, obviously nobody loves losing, but I have to imagine he probably didn't mind losing too much this week, as it does get him ever closer to that valuable draft pick. He and Sault Ste. Marie, of course, are just one game apart, so it'll be an interesting storyline to watch these final 3 weeks. A win for either team could, let's see. Joinville has more points scored, so they would need 2 wins from Sault Ste. Marie and to lose out. Sault Ste. Marie, I think if my math is right, if Joinville wins 2 more games, then the Locks will secure that first overall pick. So something just to be keeping an eye on there. And a strong week for the Bandoleros. Their guys seem to be, finding their form once again. Chase Burns has continued to just be fantastic. And Walbert Arena, who I believe, I'm double checking right now, I believe was a waiver wire pickup. Yeah, right at the beginning of the year, April 23rd, has been just incredible for the Bronx all year long. So obviously a nice strong week for them and hopefully something for JMC and the Bandoleros to be able to kind of look towards the future. The Sault Ste. Marie Locks, speaking of whom, took on the Valley Gift Lords. Sault Ste. Marie coming into the week 3-14 with the Valley at 10-7. Sault Ste. Marie did take the lead to start the week, outpacing them by 20 on Monday, scoring 69-49. Although Sault Ste. Marie didn't have any real standout players, Valley Gift Lords did. Merrill Kelly, who put up 24 on the positive side, and Yohan Duran, who put up minus 15 on the negative side. On Tuesday, Sault Ste. Marie scored 112 points, 28 of them coming from Taj Bradley as they would extend their lead. On the other side, Brandon Fotts, 29, and Michael helped inch the Valley Gift Lords closer, while Michael McGreevy's minus 18 was the second straight pretty significant negative pitcher points for the Gift Lords. They managed to straighten things out, though, on Wednesday as the Valley scored 110 points, 25 of them coming from Logan Webb, as the Gift Lords would take the lead away from the Locks. On Thursday, the Gift Lords held their lead, scoring 78, 33 of them coming from Sean Burke, while Teoscar Hernandez had a strong 11 points over on the other side for the Locks. Dylan Dingler's 13 helped the Locks score 43 on Friday, but it wouldn't be enough to take that lead back as the Gift Lords scored 71 of their own, 21 of them coming from Tanner Bybee, 24, and 11 coming from Munetaka Murakami. Saturday was a bit of a bench blunders day. TJ Rumfield did have 10 points for the Locks, but Teoscar Hernandez's 12 points were left on the bench. That was not as bad as the Gift Lord side, though, as Martin Perez and 38 points were left on the bench in an unfortunate blunder there for the Valley. Wouldn't matter too much for the standings, though. Although they were outscored by 20 points on the day, the Gift Lords would hold their lead, and they would close the matchup out as each team scored 45 points on Sunday to end the week. This is not listed in the right spot. My sincerest apologies. I need to look at something real quick. I put that in the wrong spot. Oh, okay. My apologies. We're back. Sorry, I had something listed in the wrong spot. I said this is not the biggest blowout. That's on a different matchup. We'll get to that one in just a little bit. But obviously, the Gift Lords continue their winning streak. They are now at a win 3 right now and are more comfortably in a playoff spot. Their mid to late season surge has put them in a pretty good position to potentially make their way into October baseball, as it were. In our league, I guess we should call it late August baseball, September baseball, maybe we call it. I don't know. We haven't gotten along to really put that lingo together in the league, but we'll get there before too long. But the Valley Gift Lords do take the matchup 479 to 428, 51 points separating the two of them. So relatively close matchup there. We were, the Sault Ste. Marie supporters, those who were, hoping to see a comeback, were maybe hoping for a better start out of Taj Bradley, who was in the single digits on that final day. But 51 may have been a bit too much to overcome. So good week for both teams, honestly. A little bit slower on the Gift Lord side. They were running a bit of a diminished offense as Nick Kurtz was out for a little bit with some injury concern, I think in the hand or arm. And overall, in terms of volume, both teams were pretty similar. Very close in at-bats, only 2 apart in at-bats, and very close in innings pitched, only 2 apart in innings pitched. But a little bit more quality from the Valley on both sides. They did have more Ks, fewer earned runs, and 6 more wins, which, as we all know, those 3 points rack up pretty quickly. So that certainly helped them on their way. Another just tip in the Gift Lords cap there, 7 saves to just 2. That bullpen of theirs is so strong. They're racking up those 5-point saves pretty often, and obviously that helps cover for any deficits that their pitching staff might have from week to week. For Sault Ste. Marie, they did a really good job of limiting the strikeouts, only 52. We know that that's kind of, KJ's MO. He wants guys that put the ball in play, put up pretty consistent, numbers from week to week. So kind of cool to see that coming through, in the numbers on his stat sheet. And they led in singles as well, 46-31. So nice to see there. Just a little bit of a shout out to Taj Bradley. He did put up 41 points on the week. He has been really, really great for Sault Ste. Marie. Obviously, former Gift Lord there. And then over on the Gift Lord side, Sean Burke, inexplicable. I did not think he had this in him. He has just been incredible this year. There is no other way to describe it. He has been really, really great. Just 33 points, in the one start, but he has been so good and so consistent. Something to keep an eye on. Recent trade acquisition, Aroldis Chapman had 39 points for the Gift Lords. Obviously, having watched all of those games, he he pitched in 3 of the 4 games in Oakland, in Sacramento. It's a good thing I'm not an actual broadcaster. And I think he pitched in 1 game in LA as well. So he did, pitch quite a bit this week, but, already showing out strong for the Gift Lords in that recent acquisition. The Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes versus the Washington State Winners is our third matchup. Southwest Kansas did take an early lead, scoring 55. Washington State scoring 26 on Monday. For the Rabid Coyotes, it was a bit of an unfortunate start to the week for Cater Montero, who had -3, but it's easy to take a -3 when you get 30 points from Kumar Rocker and 12 from Ozzie Albies. Over on the Winners side, it was a disappointing pitching day overall. Sean Newcomb with -8 and Zach Wheeler with, frankly, an even more shocking only 0 points. He didn't record a single point on the matchup. So, obviously we typically expect in the mid-30s for Wheeler. So that was a little bit of a surprise there. Pitching woes kind of continued for the Rabid Coyotes on Tuesday. Luis Castillo scoring -2, but they picked up a bit for the Winners. Sal Stewart had 13, but Gavin Williams turned in another strong start at 32, and that would lead the Washington State Winners to score 93 points and take the lead. They held that lead on Wednesday, scoring 68 points, 19 of them coming from Joey Cantillo, while Gabriel Moreno had 11 points to contribute to the 33 total for the Coyotes. Noah Cameron had 40 points in a loss. That Royals bullpen is a disaster. That's on Thursday as Southwest Kansas scored 85. Only 53 points scored for the Winners, but they were able to hold their lead. Friday saw a bit of an offensive explosion for Washington State. CJ Abrams with 11, Sal Stewart with 13, and Jake Bowers with 15, all made up for the -3 for Nate Eovaldi on the day, as they would continue to hold that lead, and the Winners would fully separate and sort of take their win on Saturday as they scored 111 points to just 20 over on the Coyotes side. For the Winners, Framber Valdez had 26 and Christopher Sanchez had 35. Luinder Avila with the -9 as the only blemish on the day. The Washington State Winners would close things out with a strong 34 from Gavin Williams. -8 from Emmett Sheehan is something that's easy to take when you get a strong start like that from Williams. And Cater Montero did end up closing the week out nicely for the Coyotes, scoring 28 points on the final day. Let's see. The Winners scored 505 points to beat the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes, who scored 364, outscoring them by 141 points on the week. Gavin Williams, unsurprisingly with those 2 starts, was our most potent pitcher of the week, number 1 on that list. With 66 total points. He has been just a king of volume this year, and has been really, really strong pickup from the Winners, who managed to, they traded for him from Sault Ste. Marie, who took him, I think, relatively early in that expansion draft. So he has obviously been so strong for the Winners, and a pretty key piece to them continuing to be such a strong team. Quickly, just talking over stats, Washington State really took it on the hitting side. 247 points to 119 for Southwest Kansas. That is where they really took things The winners scored 257 on the pitching side. Southwest Kansas had 245. So it was in the bats, and you see that in the volume. Over 40 more at bats. Let's see. Washington State had more hits, more runs, more singles, more doubles, more triples, more home runs, more RBIs, fewer walks. More walks, more intentional walks, more stolen bases, more total bases, more extra bases, more sac flies, and more ground into double plays, or fewer ground into double plays. Oh, that was the one I got wrong. Almost there. That was kind of a ridiculous list to list off, but I think that speaks to the absolute just sort of dominance that their bats had. More than 4 times as many home runs. And you see that, from the guys you expect. Sal Stewart, 36 points, has continued to just be incredible there. And then just a string of guys over 20. Stewart was the highest scorer for the winners with that 36, but Cal Raleigh, Bryson Stott, Alec Burleson, Brian Reynolds, Pete Crow Armstrong, Brandon Nimmo, Julio Rodriguez, and Jake Bowers, all over 20 points on the week. And I know a 20-point week is pretty good, not spectacular, but when you have that many guys putting up that many points, you get a week like you just saw from the winners. Noah Cameron, what a steal for the Rabid Coyotes. He has just continued to be fantastic for them. Again, this is somebody who was traded over there in the Robert Garcia, Alex Bregman deal from Cuyahoga earlier in the year. Kader Montero as well. Outside of that one start, he has been really great. And I'm just going to keep singing Jake Bennett's praises. He has been so good for the Sox. And I was a little bit disappointed when Oki texted me during the draft. He said, "Hey, what do you think of Jake Bennett?" I'm not going to lie. I said, "Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I actually really like him." He ended up taking him, and he has been great there. Shout out to Ozzie Albies as well. 27 points on the week. Put up a strong week there, especially, from the second base position. Let's move on to matchup number 4, as we see the St. Petersburg Tropopologists take on the Arctic Real Survivors. And Min, just skip ahead about 7 minutes here, because this is going to be a bit of a tough one to listen to. I'm not going to lie to you. The Real Survivors took a lead on decimals on the first day. Both teams scored 63 points to the round number, but the Real Survivors just a bit ahead on the decimals to take that lead. Alex Bregman had 19 points for them, but the first of a couple critical bench blunders in Zach Thornton with 23 points on the bench did dampen the day just a little bit. Real Survivors held their lead through Tuesday, scoring 74 points to 68 over on the other side. It was a little bit of a mixed bag for the Real Survivors. Strong day for a former Yankee in Gleyber Torres with 17 points and a current Yankee, Garrett Cole, with 32. But outside of that, it was not what you want to see out of your starters. Just 2 points from Bubba Chandler, -2 from Landon Roop, and -15 from Shane Bieber. I'm going to put my hands up, guys. This one is on me. No question about it. We've obviously talked about the podcast. Last episode, I spent like 10 minutes talking about how great Shane Bieber has been, how Landon Roop has finally refound his form, how Bubba Chandler looks like he might be sort of turning into the Bubba Chandler we thought we would see. And then this happened. So, Min, I am so sorry, my friend. I really am. I swear to God, guys, I don't try to curse anybody intentionally. It just happens. And now, of course, I'm going to be thinking the whole episode, oh God, can I compliment this guy, or am I going to ruin their week for next week? It was a better pitching day for the Tropopologists, as they did score 68, keeping things very close on that day. Cade Cavalli had 21, and Logan Henderson, a name to keep an eye on, had 29 points. St. Petersburg would end up taking that lead on Wednesday, scoring 100 points to 83 over on the other side. For the Tropopologists, Skubal had 26 in what would be his final start in Detroit. Emerson Hancock just 7, but a strong 12 points from their shortstop Otto Lopez helped round out the century mark on the day. Mackenzie Gore had 26 for the Real Survivors, and Jesus Luzardo did not even record 10 points, just 8 on the day. A little bit of a slow start for him. Dalen Lyle scored 16 on Thursday to account for just under half of the Tropopologists' total 34 points, while the 40 the Real Survivors scored would not quite be enough to retake that lead. Friday would be a bit of a detrimental day for the real survivors. 64 points for the Tropopologists to just 18 in the Arctic would extend that lead to a bit of a scary distance. Trey Turner had 13. Paul Skeens didn't record a point on the day for the Tropopologists. A little bit shocking there. But it was a tough scene over in the Arctic. -9 from Wilbur Dotel was not the worst situation because 37 points in a bench blunder from Will Warren left on the bench. Double hurts, obviously, with him being a Yankee, and that would have been enough for the real survivors to take the lead there. On Saturday, the Tropopologists held their lead as well, scoring 72-74 for the Arctic. Glaber Torres had 12 and Max Fried had 24 for the real survivors, while Braxton Ashcraft put up 22 for the Tropopologists. St. Petersburg scored 47 on Sunday, 11 of them coming from Jake McCarthy. And although Garrett Cole's 22 points were strong in the effort, the real survivors would end with just 78 points on the day. Landon Roop only recording a single point, likely ended up sinking them. A strong start from him might have given the Arctic the win, but unfortunately he did get knocked around a little bit in that afternoon start. The Tropopologists would take a narrow win from the real survivors, just 16 points separating the two teams, 452-436. A tough loss for the real survivors. Obviously, I don't have to say it. 16 is less than both 23 and 37, so either one of those bench blunder pitchers being started there would have flipped the matchup. Min said it, unforced errors. It's so unfortunate for him. Obviously, as he's was kind of trying to make his way back into a spot where he might be able to jump into the playoffs. A tough week. Obviously, the hardest part about this game is trying to pick the right starters, and just didn't quite work out this week. Little bit of a bright spot. Garrett Cole was the number 4 potent pitcher for the real survivors, scoring 55 points on the week. As I mentioned, this was our narrowest win, just 16 points separating the two teams. And St. Petersburg did have the fewest points in a win with 452. Close matchup, so as you would imagine, a lot of things were pretty close. St. Petersburg had a little bit of an advantage in terms of volume on the hitting side, with the inverse being true on the pitching side. What really stood out to me, though, is the quality of pitching. St. Petersburg allowed only 28 runs, while 41 were allowed over in the Arctic. And the Tropopologists issued only 24 walks, while 42 were issued for the real survivors. On top of leading in extra base hits, total bases, home runs, RBIs, all of that sort of contributed to St. Petersburg taking the lead there. Things were very close on both sides, though. 222 batting points for the Tropopologists, 229 for the real survivors, 230 pitching points for the Tropopologists, 207 for the real survivors. Obviously, a very close matchup. Those bench blunders hurt. You know that. Really positive signs still for the real survivors. Cole, Fried, Gore, all had strong weeks. And just continuing to get really strong performances, maybe from the guys you don't totally expect. In Cade Cavalli, who had 36 points on the week for the Tropopologists. Logan Henderson, who had 29 points on the week. Dude is looking like a demon for the Brewers. And some really strong hitting performances as well in St. Pete. Otto Lopez, 34 points. Hopefully future Red Sox. Probably not, but I can dream. And 26 from Trey Turner, who, although he's had a bit of a disappointing year overall, certainly showed out this week. Another name to keep an eye on the hitting side, 47 points for Alex Bregman in the Arctic. He obviously has not had the year that I think Cubs fans or Oki had initially hoped for when he took him in a trade earlier in the offseason. Of course, then flipped to Cuyahoga, who sent him over to the Arctic. But he has had a really strong week for Min. So something to keep an eye on there, and certainly something to keep an eye on moving forward as well. It was a bit of a double pod bowl this week. Obviously, Ace and I going up against one another. And then, of course, the Dodgers and the Red Sox facing off against one another as well, closing things out on Sunday Night Baseball. We did, of course, have that fun little note that we'll get to on Saturday. But let's get started with the matchup. Obviously, two teams close to or in the playoffs. Arizona looking to make their way back in. They were out only by record at 10-7. season, while the Pioneers were at the top of the league, alone in record at 13-4. Portland did take an early lead on Monday, scoring 96 points, 20 of them coming from Peyton Tolley and 29 from Francisco Lindor in a massive day to start the week for the shortstop. Portland scored 111 on Tuesday to extend their lead. Griffin Jacks got 20 and Sandy Alcantara 35, while Luis Garcia had 10 for the Asphalt. Arizona had their first big day of the matchup on Wednesdays. They scored 132 points, 12 from Andy Pages, 21 from Dustin May, and 35 from Eduardo Rodriguez. 11 points from Spencer Torkelson for the Pioneers was their only standout of the day, but they had built up enough of a lead not to surrender it to Arizona's onslaught. Portland scored 59, Arizona 60 on Thursday, 20 from Sonny Gray for the Pioneers, while Ellie De La Cruz and Luis Garcia each had 15 points for the Asphalt. Portland scored 93 points on Friday, 11 from Bryce Terang and 27 from Dylan Cease, while Michael Wacha's 25 and Foster Griffin's -2 all totaled into a 46-point day for the Asphalt. Portland would all but close things out on Saturday, scoring 106 points, 13 from Corbin Carroll, 35 from Drew Rasmussen, and 19 from Peyton Tolley as he faced off against the Dodgers and Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who put up 23 on the other side for the Arizona Asphalt. Portland would slam the door shut with their second straight 100-plus point day on Sunday. Torkelson had 11. Wheeler Abreu had 11. Torkelson had 10. Wheeler Abreu 11. And Sandy Alcantara with 29. While a 3-start day might have given Arizona the chance to come back, Mitch Keller's -18 to start off the day all but sunk them. Jacob Mizorowski did have 31 against Anaheim, but it would not be enough for the Asphalt to come back, as they did end up losing the matchup to Portland 647 to 468. 161 points separating the two of them. Portland had 3 standout players for the week. Francisco Lindor was number 2 on the best batters list with 50 points. Spencer Torkelson at number 5 on that list with 48 points. Certainly benefited from that athletics park. He had a few good days out there. Sandy Alcantara was also on the list. He was the number 2 potent pitcher with 65 points on the week. A couple superlatives for the matchup itself. Portland was the highest scorer of the week with that 647. And Arizona did unfortunately record the most points in a loss with that 486. They were 6th in total points on the week, so just above kind of that halfway mark. But of course, as it always happens, getting matched up with the highest scorer on the week. Things were very close on the hitting side. Portland outscored by about 22 points. But on the pitching side is where things really got blown out. Portland recorded 378 pitching points, while only 235 on Arizona. Obviously kind of accounted for the deficit there. A few things to keep an eye out on Portland's side, then we'll get over to Arizona. Hunter Green, another poor start, only 11 points for him. He's been pretty up and down since returning from injury. Speaking as the manager of this team, obviously, wouldn't say I'm too worried. He's coming in mid-season. It's weird. I still think he is a very good pitcher. Not too concerned there, but something to keep an eye on. And Drew Rasmussen has been an absolute workhorse for this team. 36 points on the week, and he has just put up quality start after quality start. Over on the hitting side, nice to see Francisco Lindor heating up with 50 points, of course, as I mentioned, and 36 from Bryce Harper as well, who sort of started a slump right after I traded for him, which I can't say I was actually a huge fan of. So nice to see a strong week there from him. Randy Rosarina had 30 points for the Asphalt. He was their second best batter, just behind Luis Garcia with 38. It'll be interesting to see how his bat profiles in Yankee Stadium. He is, of course, a right-handed hitter, but something nice about Yankee Stadium, obviously, right-handed hitters, they can, kind of go oppo a little bit easier with that short porch. And if they have enough power to get it out in that deep left field, it can really fit a swing nicely there. So that'll be an interesting kind of thing to keep an eye on there for the Asphalt. And look, Jacob Mizorowski did his thing. Eduardo Rodriguez did his thing. So did Wacha and Yamamoto. But it was sort of in those middle guys, in your Davis Martin, your Mitch Keller, where they did falter a little short. Yeah, I mean, close to 15 fewer innings pitched. Close to 33 fewer Ks for the asphalt, 2 fewer wins, 4 more losses, 5 more earned runs. Portland's pitching definitely kind of took the matchup for them here as they continue their win streak and remain at the top of the league. Cuyahoga Black Panthers versus the North Pole Natty Bows is our second to last matchup of the week. The Natty Bows started off with the lead, scoring 44. It was a tough pitching day for Cuyahoga as they scored just 16 points, a -5 from Tatsuya Imai and -9 from George Kirby there out in Seattle. Is obviously not how you want to start the week, but they had a strong bounce back on Tuesday, scoring 118. Fernando Tatis and Ian Happ each had 10 points, while Gage Jump put up 31. The 94 points, however, put up by the North Pole would be enough to hold their lead. Shohei Ohtani with 17 and Kevin McGonigal with 14. The North Pole would explode for 159 points on Wednesday, taking a much stronger and more secure lead as Luis Arias had 12, Matthew Boyd had 30, Chris Sale had 38, all to that just short of 160 points there, while just 38 on the other side would be a bit of a rough day in Cuyahoga. Christian Scott continued a strong run with 24 points, however. 41 for Cuyahoga on Thursday and 33 for the North Pole, 12 of them coming from Wilson Contreras. And the North Pole did hold their lead through Friday as well as they scored 107 points. McGonigal and Shohei each having 12 there and Kyle Leahy with 22, while Bryce Elder had 24 and Jeremy Pena had 12 for the Black Panthers. Things were pretty wrapped up coming into the weekend and would certainly be wrapped up as the North Pole scored 113 on Saturday to just 35 over on the other side. For the Natty Bows, Shane Boz had 21, Kevin McGonigal had 14, while it was another double, pretty significant negative pitching day for Cuyahoga. -9 from Kyle Finnegan and -13 from Hunter Gaddis. Bit of a bullpen implosion on that day for the Black Panthers. A strong George Kirby start on Sunday would be a little bit of a win in the loss for the Black Panthers. Gage Jump, unfortunately, though, had a -4. Kirby with that 29 points on Sunday. North Pole only scored 54, but it would be enough for them to cement their victory, 608 to 399. This was our biggest blowout of the week, 209 points separating the two teams. Fact of the matter here is North Pole kind of took things over in this matchup. They outscored by about 85 points on the hitting side and outscored by well over 100 on the pitching side. Just 194 pitching points for the Black Panthers, 318 for the Natty Bows. So clearly that is where a lot of the difference here came in. An interesting note, though, they were almost tied in innings pitched. North Pole only had one additional inning pitched. So it really did end up coming down to quality. You see that on the earned runs. Cuyahoga had 39 earned runs, North Pole only 22. Cuyahoga surrendered 38 walks, North Pole only 21. And, those things add up. The one, I would argue, maybe the biggest differential, 12 saves for the Natty Bows, just 1 for the Black Panthers. Those bullpen guys matter. Those saves rack up a lot of points, and clearly you can see it there. Strong week overall for the Natty Bows. Nice to see Kevin McGonigal coming back into form a little bit. Obviously started the season so strong. Hasn't really slumped, but wasn't quite as good as he was to start the year. But that 48 points on the week, great to see for him and for the Natty Bows. 31 points from Rafael Devers, who's continuing to look like his old self, is nice for the Black Panthers. They're certainly hoping he continues that run as they either look to trade him or, look to have him as a part of their team next year. 42 points from Shohei as well on the batting side alone. Definitely interesting to see that he looks like he's turned it back on a little bit as a batter. Not that he ever turned it off, he's Shohei, but he looked really good this week as a batter. And unsurprisingly, when you're pitching, it is harder to do your best hitting. So part of the magic of a fantasy player like that is if he's getting points in hitting, he's not as good of a... If he's getting points in pitching, he's not as good of a hitter, but he's getting points from pitching. And if he's not pitching, then he becomes a better hitter and he gets sort of those points made up there. So obviously living up to everything we expected of him and more. Our final matchup of the week was the Fenton Melonheads versus the Seoul Sovereigns. Obviously, a little bit of a playoff, implications matchup here. Fenton 11-6 entering the week, I believe in fourth place, pardon me. They were in fourth place with the Seoul Sovereigns in third place. So two teams right near the top there. Fenton in fourth place leading a pack of a couple people with tied records. And Seoul tied with Washington State winners, but behind them in points scored. The Sovereigns did get things started off strong on Monday, scoring 53 points. Sedan had 14 of them, Sedan Rafaela, and Nico Horner had 18 of them. Jordan Alvarez had 11 points on Tuesday. Brandon Lowe had 15 as the Melonheads scored 42, but the 86 from Seoul would be enough for them to hold their lead. Breakout star Troy Melton had 35 points, which was more than enough to absorb the minus 11 from Dean Kramer. Elliot Ramos had 11 points for the Fenton Melonheads on Wednesday, while Ian Seymour had 23 for the Sovereigns, as the Sovereigns scored 78, holding their lead, and they would do the same through Thursday, scoring 41-64 over on the other side. Nolan McLean had 22 points for the Sovereigns, making up for just over half of their points on the day, while J.J. Weatherholt had 12 and Robbie Ray 29 for the Melonheads. Fenton scored 127 on Friday. A big day from their bats. 10 points each from Matt Olson, Javi Baez, and Kyle Stowers. Could have been an even bigger day if not for Isaac Paredes' bench blunder with 13 points left on the bench there. 28 points as well from Shane Drowan, another demon out in Milwaukee, and a great piece for the Melonheads. It was a strong day for the Sovereigns as well, however, as they scored 109 points, 24 from Shota Imanaga, 28 from Tomiyuki Sugano, and another 15 from Sedan Rafaela. Don't worry, that's not the last time you'll hear his name. He would come back on Saturday, scoring at 16 points this time, while Geraldo Perdomo had 15, all en route to a 111-point day for the Sovereigns. Just a 36-point day, however, from the Melonheads on Saturday would all but sink their chance of a comeback. A strong 29 from David Peterson. You'll never say no to that. But minus 8 from DeGrom certainly did not help. Things were close on Sunday, 61-65 for Fenton and Seoul, but the Sovereigns did end up closing out the matchup on 22 from Peter Lambert, 10 from Cole Carrig, while Olsen had another 10 and Libertor had 33 for the Melonheads. All being said, Seoul goes wire to wire in a potential playoff preview matchup as they did take the battle over the Melonheads 546-422, 124 points separating the two teams. Each of them had a number of players on our standout lists. Jordan Alvarez, number 3 on the best batters list for the Melonheads with 49 points. Kevin McGonigal with 48. Oh, I'm so sorry. I knew I biffed this. I was like, I could have sworn Kevin McGonigal was a best batter. He was number 5 best batter, of course, for the Natty Bows. I apologize. I will admit, I don't really get them mixed up, but I do. I switched McGonigal and Weatherholt in my head. Both young, kind of hit toolsy infielders. Blah, blah, blah. You know it. Fenton has them. North Pole did have number 5 best batter, Kevin McGonigal. But Jordan Alvarez was not the only 49-point scorer who ended up on a list for the Melonheads. David Peterson, 49 points, who obviously things did not start out well in Chicago after that trade, but certainly showed out well this week. 49 points, number 5 potent pitcher on the week. The Seoul Sovereigns did, though, have the best batter of the week, Sedan Rafaela, the Grim Reaper of Chavez Ravine, 61 points on the week for Sedan. He is looking like everything we dreamed he could be and more, obviously on the hottest of hot stretches right now, but man, is it awesome to see as a Red Sox fan, and I'm sure doubly awesome for in 10, who's getting all those points from him. Fun little self-deprecation here. Sometimes they say it's the trades you don't make that hurt more than the trades you do. In 10 so kindly reminded me that before the season, I was offered Sedan Rafaela and Sarah Anthony Dominguez, who has not been very good, but the fact that it was 2 players in exchange for Eugenio Suarez, who needless to say, was not very good for me. And all 13 of you know that because I tried to trade him to all 13 of you to get him off of my team. I would kill to have Zidane on my roster right now, especially with his positional flexibility. And so, obviously in 10, just the upstanding citizen that he is, made sure to remind me of that trade as Rafaela was going ballistic on the week here. So thinking about adding that into a little segment here for the end of season awards. I'm going to do, I need to think of a name for the segment, but it's going to be basically going to be, biggest miss opportunity. So I'll sort of have people go back through the trades that they declined. And I have a feeling like there are obviously a bunch that I don't know about because they're in your history. And I would imagine that there are quite a few in there that, were offered in late March, early April, and then you go back and look at it now and think, oh my God, how could I not take that, and all that. So that'll be a little bit fun at the end of year superlatives award show. But back to the matchup at hand. Huge week for the Sovereigns, no doubt about it. 546 points. They are definitely putting down the rumors of them being a matchups merchant. 272 points on the hitting side and 273 on the pitching side, so quite balanced there. Under 200 for the Melonheads for their pitchers was likely kind of what sank them this week. They were relatively close, just about 40 points behind on the bats as well. They were short on innings pitched. 74 innings pitched for the Sovereigns, 65 for the Melonheads, so 9 fewer innings pitched. They did have more Ks, but fewer wins, more losses, more earned runs, more hits allowed, more walks allowed is not the recipe you want to see for Melonhead pitchers there. And obviously a very strong hitting week for the Sovereigns. And I really think that's the story of the week in this matchup. Perdomo with 32 points, looking like his old self. Ceddanne Rafaela with 61 points, looking like Mookie Betts was cloned in a lab and put back on the Red Sox to atone for their mistakes. Nico Horner with 41 points. Incredible work for the Sovereigns. So that hitting core is definitely something to keep an eye on. They are sort of the epitome of that sort of high contact approach. They have a lot of those guys: Xavier Edwards, Geraldo Perdomo, Nico Horner, Kazuma Okamoto, Yandy Diaz, Christian Yelich, Tommy Edman. Oh my God, all of these guys, they are all very contact-oriented. Ty France is another one there. So in 10, maybe not looking for those guys with the big swing, but just guys that'll hit those doubles, hit a lot of singles, and just rack up the total points there. And just speaking of that, in terms of singles, 42 for the Melonheads, 61 singles on the week for the Sovereigns. So that team racked up a lot of hits and did not strike out all that much, only 52 strikeouts on the week. So great week for Seoul, and they remain near the top of the standings. Speaking of which, let's slide down to the standing segment. Starting things off, the Portland Pioneers are alone at the top of the league at 14-4, currently on an 8-game winning streak. Washington State Winners just behind them at 13-5, with the Seoul Sovereigns following Washington State only on points scored, also at 13-5, and on a 5-game winning streak of their own. North Pole Natty Bows are at 11-7, sitting in 4th place, with the Valley Gift Lords on a win 3 in 5th place, tied in record. Also tied in record after their loss this week are the Fenton Melonheads, who dropped 2 spots but remain in the playoff picture at 6th place. The Arizona Asphalt, now kept out of the playoffs by record, are sitting in 7th at 10-8. The Arctic Real Survivors at 8-10 are in 8th place. Same record as them, the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes, also at 8-10, but unfortunately on a 6-game skid. St. Petersburg Tropopologists at 7-11 have the same record as the Bandoleros. They are in 10th and 11th place, respectively. Cuyahoga Black Panthers are at 6-12 in 12th place. Joinville is at 4-14 in 13th place. And the Sault Ste. Marie Locks are at 3-15 in 14th place. I think if we're speaking very realistically, I think Arizona is the last team that has a shot at the playoffs. It would be an awesome Cinderella run to see either the Arctic or Southwest Kansas make a run at it. They would need to win out to now tie Natty Bows, Valley Gift Lords, and Fenton Melonhead. So they would also need one of those teams to lose out along with the Asphalt. It would be a tough run for either one of those teams. Arctic does have a little bit of an edge in that they are still way up there in terms of total points scored. Let me quickly check on things. But I think that last I checked, they were like second or third in total points scored. They're currently in fourth, so pardon me. But the only team that they're behind in that group is the Natty Bows. So theoretically, winning out for the Arctic and a couple other teams having a bad 3-game stretch could get them in, but that would be a Cinderella run for the ages. So really, we're kind of looking at Arizona here. They're sort of in a battle with those 4 teams at 11-7. The North Pole Natty Bows, Valley Gift Lords, and Fenton Melonheads. Those 4 teams competing for spots 4, 5, and 6. Things to keep an eye on in the final 3 weeks of the season. Let's talk over the claims corner real quick. As I said, obviously some inflated prices as teams are like, well, we got 3 weeks left and I got $200. Let's spend big. So $35 for Robert Gasser over to the Soul Sovereigns on Monday. A $25 bid by the Joinville Friendly Capybaras being beat out there. Ryan Zefrajan did have a $15 bid as well. That did send him to Soul. Christian Encarnacion Strand went for $56 to the Bandoleros, beating out a $37 bid from the Melonheads, and Lawrence Butler went for $8 to the Bandoleros. Patrick Sandoval went for $35 to Joinville on Thursday. Eduardo Valencia went for $17 to Fenton. Javier Baez also went to Fenton for $19, and Andrew Monasterio went for $20 to the Portland Pioneers. Pardon me, just 3 trades to talk over this week. A bit of a slow week on the transaction tracker, as I mentioned. Getting ready for a potential onslaught. It'll be interesting. I don't know. I do have to say, I was kind of looking over the rosters. I feel like most of the contending teams kind of feel like they've made their moves. And I don't know. It'll be interesting. I will say this is one of the things we proposed last season is moving the trade deadline earlier. I'm going to push for it again this offseason. I think a couple weeks earlier, maybe even just a week earlier, so a week or 2 weeks earlier, gives a little more time for teams with that, with their new players, to, down the stretch run. And it also, I think, it might lead to a little bit more sort of deadline fireworks as, like a couple weeks ago, there were a ton of trades happening as everyone was kind of prepping. So something just to keep in mind, obviously, but we got 3 transactions to talk over. Sault Ste. Marie traded Alex Clemmy, who is Washington's number 14 prospect, over to the Valley Gift Lords in exchange for JT Jin and the Arctic Real Survivors 2027 second. Cuyahoga sent Emilio Pagan, a little relief pitcher help, over to the North Pole in exchange for Hagen Smith, who is MLB's number 51 prospect. Great deal for both sides here. Teams moving in the directions they need to. Cuyahoga gets, a high upside arm from Chicago in Smith, while Cuyahoga gets a strong bullpen reinforcement in Pagan, who obviously has been great for the Cincinnati Reds and will continue to shore up that already strong Natty Bows bullpen. Final trade of the week was a prospect swap. George Klassen went from Sault Ste. Marie. He is Los Angeles Angels number 9 prospect, over to the Washington State Winners in exchange for Drew Jones, Arizona's number 24 prospect. Nothing too big here. Couple unranked prospects. I do love me a sicko trade here. I do lean on the Klassen side a little bit more, I have to say, just him being a pitcher. And Drew Jones is somebody who I think maybe exists in prospect circles more off of his name than off of his quality, but he has been on quite the hot stretch as of late, so I wonder if maybe Sault Ste. Marie, I was looking to just capitalize on that and maybe grab him before a real explosion. Coming back around. All right, on to next week's notes. 3 weeks left, so week 19 next week, and then 2 more weeks after that, so we are obviously coming right down to it before the playoffs start. Week number 19 will open up with the Arizona Asphalt versus the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes. Arizona 10-8, Southwest Kansas 8-10. Big week for Arizona. They definitely need a win to at least keep pace with those three teams that they are chasing. And obviously we'll be hoping for a loss in one of those three. One of the teams Arizona will be cheering for is the Bronx Bandoleros, who at 7-11 take on the 11-7 Fenton Melonheads. Fenton obviously looking to get back on the winning side and continue to hold their spot in the playoffs there. North Pole Natty Bows will be taking on the Joinville Friendly Capybaras. Natty Bows at 11-7 and Capybaras at 4-14. Sault Ste. Marie Locks will take on the Cuyahoga Black Panthers at 3-15 and 6-12. Interesting match up there. Two teams in the bottom three right now. Of course, I guess, yeah, you all know the rules. You put your best lineup out there. If your lineup is built to lose, that's fine. But I would imagine both of these teams might be cheering for their players to not score too many points this week, because a loss for either one of them puts them in a much better position to potentially get a really good pick in the draft. Although I should say Sault Ste. Marie doesn't actually own their first round pick in this upcoming year. Let me check about Cuyahoga, see who does own it. As of right now, the Cuyahoga does not have their interesting. Okay, we're working back around. Cuyahoga does not have their first round pick. I'm not going to go clicking through rosters to see who has it. Okay, well, that's an interesting matchup. So a couple other people will be cheering in that matchup. The Fenton Melonheads, who currently own the Sovereigns' first-round pick in this upcoming draft, acquired that pick in the Corbin Carroll trade from Portland. They will certainly be cheering for Cuyahoga, hoping to keep Sault Ste. Marie in that final spot. And whoever has Cuyahoga's pick in this upcoming draft, let me know. There is one lean. I think I might know who it is. And if it's not that, it is not that. I will not spend time. Let me know who it is who has Cuyahoga's pick there. That, of course, will be interesting to look at. Wow, that's going to be an interesting top three next year. I think I'm just going to take a second now. Joinville has their own pick, unless I am incorrect. They do have their own pick. Joinville does have their own pick, along with two other first-round picks. Joinville potentially drafting three players in the first round, one with their own pick, one with the Arctic Real Survivors, and one with North Poles. So potential for a big draft for the Friendly Capybaras there. Again, shout-outs to Hideki. Awesome work on this rebuild. They've done a really good job setting themselves up for the future. But there's been a lot of movement of those first round picks, and it'll just be interesting to see teams who, how high teams that end up picking higher in the draft were, in the season there. So something interesting to keep an eye on. I digress. We'll move on to the next matchup. The Seoul Sovereigns at 13-5 are taking on the St. Petersburg Tropopologists at 7-11. Washington State winners at 13-5 will look to keep pace with the league-leading Portland Pioneers against the Arctic Real Survivors, who are at 8-10. And the headlining matchup for the week, the Valley Gift Lords at 11-7 versus the Portland Pioneers at 14-4. Both teams on a win streak. The Valley win 3, Portland win 8. They are currently 5th place and 1st place in standings. The Valley has been a juggernaut as of late, just tearing teams down with that offense and that really strong bullpen, along with their sort of hodgepodge of starters. And I do sort of mean that complimentary. They have really been great. Shout out to Brian Bayo, who's been a real weapon. 18, 20, and 18 points in his last 3 appearances, all out of the bullpen. So, of course, not costing a start there. A little bit of a cheat code for the Valley. I'm going to speak candidly. I do think Portland's winning streak ends here. I think I will end up tied with the Washington State winners coming into next week. I do not see myself taking down the Valley Gift Lords. My starters line up terribly. I potentially have one person going twice. Other than that, it's all one start. Gift Lords have 3 or more people all going twice. 3 starts on Sunday. You never know. Batters could backpack. We could get some really strong, quality performances out of the pitching staff in Portland. But if I did have to take a guess, I have a feeling that Gift Lords will be taking another win and more securely putting themselves into that playoff picture. As we come down to the final weeks of the season. Thank you for sticking with me here. It looks like, unfortunately, the mic troubles did hold Ace out of the lineup for today, but hopefully he will be back in the lineup next week as we recap week 19. My goodness, we are getting so close to the end. It is exciting. Looking forward to, recapping those final weeks. Getting pretty close to some elimination scenarios. Next week, we'll probably be talking those over a little bit. Those are always super fun, along with, of course, some, best record clinching and all that kind of stuff scenarios. And then after that is playoffs, and those are a ton of fun. Last year, for those who didn't listen, just our new expansion teams, with fewer matchups, we were able to kind of dive into things a little bit more and talk about, what happened in previous matchups, talk about things that really stood out, and just kind of dive into things as there are only 3 and 2 than just one matchup on the week. So those playoff podcasts I found a lot of fun. Hopefully the same was true for listeners there, and those will be here before you know it. But 3 weeks to go still, so don't want to put the cart before the horse. Thank you for sticking with me on this hopefully Monday morning for you if you're listening this Sunday evening. I appreciate your sickoness, but go to sleep. And good luck on your Week 19 matchups, everyone. Have a good one.
Do you know what that makes you, Larry?
Lollygaggers.